And you're going? Okay. Welcome to the March 20th, 2014 regular meeting of the Granada Sanitary District. We have just come out of open session and closed session and into open session, and
no reportable action was taken.
Thank you. So let's have the roll call again.
Here, President Matthew Clark.
Here.
Vice
Blowing.
President Leonard Warren.
Present.
Secretary Jim Blanchard.
Here.
Treasurer Dave.
Here.
Treasurer Rich Loman.
Here.
And also as well as General Manager Ted Becky and our legal counsel John Wallace.
Thank you. As usual, we will open with general public participation on any matters not on the agenda. Who is this? You have to fill out a slip later.
Is this connected or do we not need it?
Do you see a wire going to it?
Well, I mean, does it matter?
Can you
hear me?
just take Jonathan's.
You want to do that?
Yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted, huh?
You can sing.
Oh, yeah. I'm Fran Pollard, El Granada, and I just wanted to say congratulations to Rick for getting on the LAFCO board, and congratulations, GSD. I think it's great. Finally.
You realize Rick's an alternate.
Whatever.
I got a couple things.
Okay.
I actually expected a contingent of people from the community to be here. Of course, the person who called me thought that it was going to be on our agenda, which I see it's not. But there's people that want us to move to even year elections. So we might want to put that on a near future agenda to see if the board wants to go there.
I think that's a good idea to agenda.
I'd like to see it on the agenda.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I want to do it, but I think we should talk about it.
Absolutely.
So the other thing, and we'll give more details, but for the people that tune out before the end of the meeting, I'll mention that Sam has a new general manager, Rob Hopkins, starting on April 21st.
What's his name?
Rob Hopkins.
Showing again how the new SAM board is working well together.
Well, we'll go into that during the agenda item 3. And early heads up is we have the recycle event coming up about 5 weeks now. Right, 5 weeks.
I can't see that far, right? It's the fourth Saturday.
Yeah.
26th. All right. With that, we'll open a public hearing on item number 1, consideration of a resolution approving amended non-contingent assessment sewage treatment facility improvements, integrated financing district, amendment 16.
I mean, this is the 16th year we've done that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we haven't actually done it every year.
So this is a follow-up to the item we had last meeting. And it just approves a resolution making the amended non-contingent assessments. So basically, any parcels that have changed over the year, just puts that into the public record.
So staff report says no protests were received.
Do we have anyone in the public here to address this issue? No? Seeing none?
I move we close the public hearing and adopt resolution number 2014-003, a resolution approving amended non-contingent reassessments, sewage treatment facility improvements, integrated financing district.
Before you vote on that, has there been a second, first of all? Because I have a question, but I'd like to see a second.
A second?
No
I'll
second.
second it if you want. That's,
I just, Delia, I don't know if you got my email about this, and it's probably right, but I just want to make sure that in these whereas clauses, where it says, refers to resolution number 2013-010, that's right, that was,
I sent you.
oh, I didn't get it.
Sorry, you probably already were on the
Okay.
That is the resolution that was approved in December, which directed the making and of the report and so
Okay,
forth. So
great.
that's what we were seeking.
I just wanted to make sure we were adopting the right language.
All right, do we have any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Item number 2, consideration of LAFCO approval of reorganization into a community services district with parks and recreation powers and next steps.
Would you care to announce the ballot argument situation?
The ballot argument situation is, we submitted several of us worked on various parts of it, a pro-Measure G argument, and it was accepted and will be printed. There was no opposing argument submitted, or at least not by the deadline, so there won't be an opposition in the voters pamphlet or on the ballot, and there's no need to put a rebuttal in either.
That's really good, because that means the voter pamphlet will say, no argument against the measure was submitted.
Matthew, was that Measure G like in gardens?
Like in, great, we'll have some parks, yeah,
Okay, just-
Measure G.
And so I don't have much to report. We haven't had much action since our last meeting because obviously the heavy lifting has been done and we're cruising toward the June 3rd vote on this. I did send an email to Marlene Finley, the head of parks at the county, and she responded to me saying we've got to talk a little bit more before we can enter into this interim agreement or initial agreement to help us run the Parks and Rec side if it comes to be. So I've got to get back to her, but that's about all the action we've had since our last meeting.
Do I understand that the impartial analysis got approved by LAFCO?
That is true.
It was actually a pretty good impartial analysis. I was slightly annoyed at the way they framed the potential rate increases, but overall, I think it was pretty good. So who wrote it?
Martha.
Martha. Oh, I expected the assigned county council to write it. Interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty even-handed also. And, you know, the sewer service charge, I don't know how you handle it. It's a tough thing to handle because we're trying to predict whether you're going to raise rates or not, so.
Well, listen to the audio recording of the SAM board meeting or the workshop.
I can imagine.
No, you can't. We'll get to that.
You don't want to.
I'd rather imagine than listen to it, though.
Matthew, I don't know if Chuck has wrapped up. One thing I want to discuss here, I'm not sure which, this is an A or a B item. I would like to have our April meeting be another public meeting at the Granada School or whatever appropriate place is found to give, if anything, I think, I mean, since we're in this sort of catch-22 trap where we can't, you know, promote the project. We have to just give information. So I think with the new website up, I think with a public meeting, and I would like to use our April meeting as another public forum where we explain everything again. Before that meeting, I would like to have 2 flyers go out. One to the Granada people.
When you say flyer, you mean like a small
No,
newsletter?
well, a newslettery kind of thing
but
that
you mean
explains what's happening.
But you're talking about mailing it to
Yes.
all
It will announce the meeting. It will basically describe briefly what the process is, what we're doing, what a yes vote means, what a no vote means. And I'd like a separate one for Granada than Half Moon Bay, because Half Moon Bay is different. If they vote yes, then Half Moon Bay gets money, you know, however that's described.
But you would in fact send to everyone in the district just?
Yes, just their process is different, so I think they should get a different letter.
Okay,
That says, here's what happens in your area, and here's what happens in the Granada area.
Let me suggest that we hear from council and then you might make that into a motion.
But the way you described that, you were clearly making it a fair comment, a neutral
Yes.
statement, and that can be done by this body. We just have to be sure that we are following the law as far as not spending public funds.
I just don't want anybody out there to say, I don't know what you're talking about.
And there's still,
So,
there's
we have
still
to
an
just keep trying.
unbelievable number of people who
Yeah.
don't know anything at all about it.
Well, we can't solve everything, but I want to say we have a website, we have flyers, we have posters in various places. This is all we can do legally without spending billions of dollars, and we're not advocating, we're saying, here's what's gonna happen.
I would even suggest that it start out as just an expansion on the impartial analysis that's been approved. Just, flesh
I
that
think
out.
it has to be small enough to be, some, like 2 pages at the most, because it's gotta be.
Yeah, I've written more stuff on this thing. I'll
Yeah.
take version 6 or something.
So you're
Something
thinking
will
like
fit.
a single sheet of paper
Well,
folded?
I can see 2 pages folded, it's still gonna be the same price.
Do we
in a-
do we
in
have that
envelope.
much to actually say? That
Well, I
that
want
wouldn't be
a
advocacy?
fact is, here's who's endorsed. Show the facts of what's happening. That's not saying we're in, anything, but say, there's enough information, we could fill up 2 sheets of paper and mail it out to everybody. But I think that's an obligation we have, is to get this out to the public and see who can show up.
Is the goal to get people to show up to the meeting or information that they'll
Both.
talk to?
Because if you don't show up at the meeting, this is, besides the ballot statement, this is all you're gonna have. Unless other people, do information too, so someone picks up their ballot and looks at that maybe, but if they've got a letter in their hand that at least describes the basic process, they'll at least understand what's happening.
So for the April meeting, can we announce that as come and get your questions answered? Because I don't want it to devolve into the situation we had before.
Well, I mean, whatever's gonna happen in the public meeting is gonna happen in the public meeting.
But are you okay with publicizing it as come get your questions answered about this?
Well, however that's phrased, I mean, we're gonna.
Call it town hall.
Yeah, we'll make a presentation and people ask questions, that's fine.
I think looking at it realistically is April too soon by the time it gets drafted, developed, mailed out, all that in time.
But
Well,
it has to be
Yeah.
April because the
that the
vote by mail
mail?
ballots start arriving early in May before our May meeting.
The last week in April they start,
Okay.
so it's really our own.
Well,
Is that,
we're gonna
is that
have to-
possible? You could get all that together?
And thank you for staying there. But that is,
Okay.
I mean, we've got to draft a newsletter, get buy-in, get mailers out. That's a lot
Well,
of work.
since
So
it has
if
to
we
be-
have to, I mean, I'll play it by ear, but if it becomes an issue, maybe we can, schedule a special meeting for April, maybe a week after or something, because we've got timing issues, so.
But
That
since-
would be okay. I mean,
Rick, are you suggesting 2 separate mailings? I think you're suggesting 1 mailing with 2 versions.
2 versions, because Half Moon Bay answers are different than the Granada versions.
Yeah.
It's a different process happens, the money goes different places.
Yeah, I've got to think about that. I'm a little itchy on that, just because I don't want people comparing letters they've got and go, mine says this and this one says this.
Or okay, that's
So I
fair.
think maybe,
You could do an attention Granada
We'll have
version
enough-
one, an attention.
yeah, we'll have enough
Okay.
space, I think, on that to
That's easier.
kind of explain everything.
Okay,
Yeah.
No, I
I'm
would
fine with
say
that.
that, because it has to be neutral, that there's no justification for saying it has to come back to the board for approval. I think between you and Jonathan, I don't want to delay the meeting waiting, to have the board approve the letter that's going out, because then it's just going to totally derail all the timing, if we want to do this on our regular meeting date in April.
Right.
if you want, I mean, checking the calendar over there, the 24th is the week after our meeting. That's okay.
Yeah, and I'm going to shoot for a regular meeting,
It's
it's
still
just
gonna
in the
be
real world.
adequate time
Right.
for everybody to get it before they start grabbing the ballots and.
Because
we
we've
just
got
want-
logistical stuff with the printer and all that kind
And,
of stuff.
and you would need to direct the administrator, like right now, to try and reserve the room.
With a loudspeaker system.
Okay, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Might be able to borrow MCC's.
Well, I might try and steal Martha's. She had a good one. All right.
Well, I think that's what Rich is suggesting is entirely appropriate, given that this is the biggest, certainly, change that Granada Sanitary District's ever contemplated. And,
Well, since ordinance 1,
and since
establishing the district.
Since ordinance 1, indeed, and there are some complications here that bear repeated explanation. So,
So Rick, want to make a
what would
motion?
you like to do about the regular agenda at that meeting?
How
Well,
much?
if Chuck is saying a special meeting on the 24th, then there is no issue. That gives you an extra week to play.
Yeah, and I don't know,
That's fine. And that would be
I'll
the
have
only
to see what our
item.
agenda looks like, because I don't know that we'll have much on it anyway. And my goal is to make this look like a sewer district agenda, which is 1 or 2 ministerial items, so. And I think, you even look at tonight's agenda, we're close to getting there. I mean, so there may not be anything pressing. So I'll let everyone know. Let me look at the future agenda. I'll meet with Delia and we'll kind of look at that and we'll play it by ear and see what happens.
Now, for reasons that I'll discuss with Jonathan offline, if we are not going to have a meeting on the 17th, we need to post it as canceled due to anticipated lack of quorum, which we haven't been doing. But that's really the way, that's the only real way to cancel a regular meeting.
All right.
So, but I think we should have a motion on directing the general manager to prepare these, I guess it's one flyer now, it sounds, or a newsletter with neutral content, and it's to be mailed.
All right, so the motion would be to draft a newsletter, hopefully that goes out to the residents within the next 2 or 3 weeks, and also set a town hall meeting at the El Granada School for either our next regular meeting date or maybe a week after.
When are we going to determine that in terms of?
When I look at my schedule and see how fast we can get pieces in place, and we talk to the printer and see how fast, what their print turnaround time is, we have to go out to somebody, I forget who it is, and get addresses for people and things like that.
And now,
So-
if you're going to do just a black on some paper newsletter again, not the 4-color ones that we've done, you should be able to get faster turnaround on that. I don't see doing the full-blown color thing for this.
And you
But-
could mention the new website.
Yeah.
No, well, but the website's the same address.
Yeah, but if you want to see color, go look at the website.
Now, the one thing I would suggest is make sure that the way it's folded, there's something on the front side and also the back side that basically entices the recipient to open it and read it. Because I've heard that these
You may
things.
already have won.
A park.
I've heard that government agency newsletters are thrown out unopened more often than not. So make it enticing to people to actually open it and read it. So I'll second Rick's motion.
Any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
No opposition?
Can I get clarification on that motion, black and white versus the color? I mean, do we want to limit ourselves? We've done color in the past, and I don't know why we go to black and white.
I would say if you can, if it doesn't cause a time frame problem in getting it
I don't
out
think it
of
will.
that.
I think they're all the same now.
Because I like the picture on the website that we've used time and time again is just a nice picture, and people.
Right.
it's-
I don't
it's
think
kind
you're
of-
going to
it's kind
grab
of-
people with black and white, I guess is my point. We're trying to get them to open
That's
it
fair.
up, so.
Well, I don't know about the current website, but the website that I created, you may or may not have noticed that there's different pictures, and every time you go to the page, you get some random picture.
Can use a shiny silver envelope.
I like Matthew's idea.
I just want to be clear about one thing that as I understand the motion, you delegated these decisions ultimately to your general manager, because he may have to, decide color, decide black and white, decide shape, et cetera. based on what the printer says. We don't know any of that right
Pricing,
now.
things like
Pricing.
that.
So, and unless somebody is
No,
disagreeing with that.
I'm
he
fine
should
with
know
delegating
that.
though.
With consultation with the board as appropriate.
Yes,
Well,
individual board members.
Yes.
I think it'd be helpful to decide tonight if, I mean, should we just go a week back, just in terms of, I mean, I think, you know, in terms of planning, you know, since we won't be together again until then, realistically, does it, should, you know, can we just make it for the next meeting, or do we really need to plan a
if
week
it's,
later?
if it's practical for staff to get it done on a regular meeting date, I think that's preferable, because I think that there's a really good reason why the Brown Act dictates regular meetings. And when you play loose with meeting dates, especially canceling regular meetings, I think that's not public friendly. The reason regular meeting dates are required is so that people can count on, if they have something they want to bring up with the board, they can go on that regular meeting date and have it heard. You know,
I am not opposed to having a regular meeting, just have a regular meeting. And then if this
Have a special
happens to be the 24th the next week, and that's the only item, that's fine too. I mean,
Right.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go.
Yeah.
For immediacy, I believe mail-in ballots will be arriving at people's homes the next day, the 25th.
Well,
So,
I thought they wouldn't come out until the beginning of May.
they're mailed in the last week in April.
Yeah, I
You know,
thought-
the last,
yeah,
so that's still fine.
I think it was, I thought I remembered it being the 24th that they started the mailing.
We just want to give them as much neutral information as we possibly can. Because maybe they'll call somebody and, you know, stimulate some discussion out there. So we just we want everybody to know and not have somebody say in June, oh, I didn't know about that.
So are you all saying that you want the meeting on the 24th?
I'm saying that,
Yeah.
that we should let you decide whether you can get it arranged in time for a regular meeting date, and if not, then punt.
But I thought I heard Matthew say you wanted a special set aside.
Yeah, I think you should decide that.
I
We'll
think
have
from a
regular-
resource standpoint,
Yeah.
you know, it's easier to just shoot for that, and then if, you know, for whatever reason, if we need to push back, you know, but I think, you know, I think in terms of initially planning, it makes the most sense, you know, just from a resource standpoint.
Now I'm lost.
No, I think we're all on the same page,
Okay.
saying try and get it done on a regular meeting date, and if you
And
can't.
if it can't,
then
push it
punt.
back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, agenda item 3, consideration of report on ongoing issues by District Sewer Authority Mid-Coast representatives. Who's up?
Well, we had a budget workshop a week ago. That was a long meeting. But aside from that, as I mentioned during public comment, we do have a new general manager starting April 21st. And his background is interesting. He is, if I remember which job he's currently in, he is, or at least used to be, but I think is the general manager of the, get this, the Big Bear City Community Services District, which is an odd state of affairs to have a city where police, fire, sewer, and water are done by a CSD. So he has experience wearing multiple hats, and most of his experience appears to be in smaller agencies like SAM. So the board overall is pretty enthused with this new hire.
Good.
So,
And he's taking over April 21st-ish?
right, and so at the meeting a week ago, we also had some other miscellaneous agenda items, and we asked the interim to be there for 2 weeks of overlap, and then after that, it'll be up to the new manager to decide, you know, how much he needs to call on the interim for information, but my feeling is that between the two administrative the two supervisors, the administrative services supervisor and the technical services supervisor, those two people pretty much know everything there is to know about running SAM, so I doubt if the new manager will need much from the interim. Let's see, looking over the agenda real quick. Mostly I want to talk about the budget workshop, but let's make sure, well, okay, the interim manager is really pushing a pretty different priority list for the capital replacement items. The SAM infrastructure is by and large 40 years old, and in some cases, not enough resource has gone into maintaining it. And so we have things that are now at end of life. We probably have some items that are past end of life. And some of this is big ticket stuff that, we haven't really realized how much it's going to cost. And do you remember what the total is? I think the near term is $3 million, and the whole package of projects that might need to be done over the next 5 to 10 years is something like $7 million. Am I remembering that right?
Well, yeah, if you look at upgrading or fixing everything.
Yeah.
I think the short term, what people are worried about are what are kind of the critical things that we need to do in the next year or the next 2 years to do the best we possibly can to keep valves from breaking and things like that that could cause a catastrophic problem. If instead of doing a bunch of small little maintenance projects that are really nice and that interesting, replacing a roof on a shed, those can be put off a little bit.
Well, it depends on the condition of the roof.
What?
Depends on the condition of the roof.
Yeah, but anyway, the goal is to enumerate the 8 to 13 projects and working with the managers too that we need to start these now. If we don't complete them all, we need to put them in the schedule saying, here's what's going to be replaced.
So one of the issues is there's apparently new directives from the Regional Water Quality Board requiring agencies to have what interim manager says is called firm capacity. And I first heard that term on one of the director's tours of all the SAM facilities. And what firm capacity means is that, for example, the Portola pump station, which has three small pumps and wait a minute, it's got one small pump and 3 big ones. And during dry weather, we run on the one small one. During wet weather, we run on the 3 big ones. And firm capacity means that we have to be able to move everything necessary if one of the big pumps goes out. And nowhere in the SAM system do we have firm capacity at this time.
Oh, we don't know that.
Well, in a sense, that's true, but, we can pretty much look at it and intuit that it's unlikely that we have firm capacity in very many places.
But we don't know that. So we have not done the engineering study that shows that.
So, one of the SAM directors wanted to approve a $20,000 expenditure to get a new
Hydraulic model?
yeah, that. And he said he wanted to have it ready for when the new manager starts. And I said, that's only a month away. Why don't we allocate the money but not authorize it until we see if he thinks it should be done? And so I got agreement on that. So it'll be up to the new manager to see if we want to go ahead and get the new hydraulic model. I suspect that we'll need to do it because, in particular, the new wet weather overflow storage here probably changes significantly the hydraulics of the whole system.
Well, yeah, and they don't have a firm handle on what happens if the Montera pump station kicks on at the same time as the Princeton pump station kicks on. now it's pushing against a higher head, what happens to the sizing of those pumps and the efficiencies and things like
But
that.
why wouldn't that show up in the previous hydraulic model?
It may have. The previous hydraulic model was done in 1998, and the hydraulic models they have now are obviously much more advanced than.
I
what they
thought we had
back then.
multiples, and there was one that was somewhat newer than that.
Vivian told me 1998.
Okay. But overall, so basically we have $320,000 left in the capital budget, and the choice was either return it to the member agencies, which Vivian's been resisting, or roll it over, and what we decided to do is take the top, some number of projects that add up to 320,000 and just get them done. But that's on her reordered list, not the ordered list prepared by SRT. So, where was our engineer on the priority order? Has he looked at that?
Which priority?
The projects, there was a spreadsheet that was distributed that's that big, so that it was a reasonable font
Because of the
size.
font.
Yeah, there
size.
was one done in October that we looked at, and then Vivian, we just had a brutal 5-hour conference call, probably a couple of weeks ago on that, so he has not weighed in on the new list. But and nor have I done a comprehensive review of the projects contained in that $7 million project.
Because I have a lot of faith in KJ. I would certainly like to get another engineer's opinion on that priority list because of, how expensive the whole list is.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I'm gonna be sitting down and talking about it with my operational engineer at Dudek. He's the guy who came up and did the walkthrough with us.
Okay, so maybe that would suffice instead of KJ.
Yeah, either one.
Okay.
I mean, they're both good. John's a good engineer too, so.
All right. So can you just do that on your discretion based
Oh, yeah,
on
absolutely.
what we're talking about here?
Yeah, I was going to do it anyway.
Okay, good.
Because it's $7 million, so, which we are on 30%
Yeah.
on the hook for.
Now, the good news is, and this was actually commented on at the budget workshop, the SAM board is working quite well together. We still have disagreements because of the different interests of the member agencies, but the board itself is able to work together and not have the personality issues that got some press coverage years ago. And it also seems that Half Moon Bay currently, in fact, probably due to the lead of their two SAM reps, does not seem to be balking at paying their share of the whole system costs.
And I want to point out, there's the nomenclature board project. Most of these are fixing things that are in place. It's relining, some of the IPS and fixing some of the tanks at the treatment plant. So these aren't new projects in the sense of that.
They're maintenance. And so one of the things that the interim manager did in this budget presentation was a number of the things that in the past had been maintenance items, but because they were over a certain dollar amount, a previous manager, not the last manager, but the one before him, unilaterally, arbitrarily said if it's over $5,000, it's going to go on capital. And replacing a roof is not a capital project, it's maintenance. If you want to call it capital maintenance, fine, but it's maintenance. And so the budget this year is a little hard to compare with last year because of this shift of, I think, a few $100,000 worth of maintenance items back into the maintenance budget where they belong. So a little tricky to compare there, but one of the things that I want our general manager to look at is when you look at the different percentage increases for the three agencies, Granada takes a huge hit compared to the other two, and I want to know why that is. Part of it is there's something up with the flows again, the flow percentages have been drifting up, where you see Half Moon Bay at 48.5, where they traditionally were at 50 or above, and Granada at, I forget exactly, 31 and a half. I don't know if that's in the packet here. And, you know,
31.4.
Okay, 31.4, and traditionally we've been under 30. And before anybody thinks that I'm picking nits over the difference between 29 and a half and 31 and a half, that's a couple $100,000 a year to us. So that's why we need to really get a handle on exactly what's going on with the flow, because, you know, once again, I don't have any faith in the numbers. So, if you could, you know, go through the budget, and one of the things I should point out is that Half Moon Bay's percentage, I think, was the lowest percent increase of the three, and they're saying that they can't go to their ratepayers and propose something over 10%. And I forget what the proposed increase was for them, but we're going to have to dial back on the rate at which we're doing these capital improvements to keep the cost down. You know, I don't even want to think about what our ratepayers would say if we went to them and said, you know, we're going to have this huge rate increase over the next 10 years.
I think the key here is to get a plan in place, and then we can figure out, all right, do we want to do all these projects? Are they absolutely necessary? I mean, you know, I took a glance at it. Some of the projects in later years, you know, is it a need versus a want? Do you have to overhaul an entire digester if you've got a redundant digester here in case one breaks? Maybe not. So, and that saves you $400,000. So we have to look at that, and the second thing we have to look at is what's the time frame it's going to be spread over. I thought Vivian's, you know, budget, the one I saw anyway, was completely unrealistic because, you know, like you say, Half Moon Bay and Montera, you know, you can't do a 218 process barely in the time we've got now, and it's a lot more money. So instead of doing it over 7 years, it might have to be spread over 10, that kind of stuff too. So.
All right, so
Did they take any action? Did they release the budget to the member agencies?
no. That'll probably be on the agenda. I didn't get a chance to look at the agenda because I was out this afternoon, but the agenda is available for the meeting in a few days.
Oh, okay.
So if you could take a look at that and see, you know, what input you might want to give to the two GSD exam reps before Monday. And since I'm also generally out on Monday afternoon, if you could send any comments you might have before Monday.
All right, will do.
I'd just like to, since we're talking about rate increases, Delia did a little analysis for us. Over the last 20 years, I think this is interesting to our constituents especially, is that we've averaged over the last 20 years a 1.8% increase per year. Because we had so many quiet years and it's lumpy, but if you take all the increases over 20 years, we're only at 1.8% a year, which has certainly been like half of inflation.
And that,
so we've been really doing a good job. You know, toot our horn.
In significant part, that's because 15 years ago, we cut the rate by 25%, almost 25%. And then after that cut, I think it was totally flat for a
flat
decade.
for many years.
I'm pretty sure that we went for a decade after that with no rate increases at all. So people in this district have gotten a really good deal. And when you look at San Carlos, wow, San Carlos has I forget, 3 to 5 year steep ramp up in progress now in their sewer service charges. And at the end of that ramp up, their sewer service charges are going to be $1,100 a year, which is what, 2.5, nearly triple what our current rate is. And so at the end of that, it's still going to be well over double our rates.
And they're going to have some more too.
Hmm?
And they're going to have some more.
San Carlos?
Mm.
And in the meantime, the county a couple of years ago lost 2 Prop 218 hearings in county-run sanitation districts. But when you look at it, they want to raise it from, 1,200 a year to 1,800 a year, gee, why do you think they lost?
Well,
from
they were
218?
they were small districts, right? 100,000.
They were hillside districts that really need to, the county needs to figure out how to pay the neighboring cities to pull it in there, but it's gonna be a political nightmare on so many different grounds.
No, this isn't our business either, but that deal's been made. Essentially, they overrode the 218 process.
I didn't know you could do that.
They're under court order
Oh,
to fix
right,
things.
right, yep.
If you're, Don, I have a comment and two questions coming out of the minutes. First, a comment is, I'd like to thank you, Director Warren, for bringing up the non-working rain gauge at the Portola pump station again.
I used your name.
Relative to what we're saying about the flow, our flow creeping up again, and I brought that up when I was going to the SAM meetings, because was the story we got was, well, it's the rain. And remember, it was I because of the rain, that's why our percentage went up.
Oh, we're gonna have to remember that for Monday. That's a really good point. Thanks.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
right now, and for how many months now, we've had no rain gauge in the district.
Well, we've also had no rain up until a month ago.
Well, true. But we have had some rain, and our percentage went up about 1.5 points in the last report, so. Then, in the minutes, in 4 old business, item C at the bottom, it indicates a motion was made and seconded to ratify the agreement between the union, local, and SAM regarding overcertification of local 39 members, and that's it for the item. Was there a vote taken?
Yes, it's at the 2 lines at the top of the next page.
What do you mean, this is the 2 lines
That
at the
is
top of the
the
next
2 lines.
page.
Oh, sloppy minutes.
So, yes, did this agreement get made with the local, or?
I believe we approved it unanimously.
You guys will have to point that out at the SAM meeting.
You mean the fact that something's missing from minutes?
Yeah.
Yes. And then my other question is, at the bottom of new business, it brings up recycled water. And a discussion ensued. Director Lohman requested moving the project forward. Lohman, Alifano, and Boyd offered to be on the recycled water committee. End of item. Is there now a recycled water committee?
Yes.
Good.
And on Monday's agenda, there are, I think, 3 sources of grants that have popped up. So I had that put on the agenda to discuss how to launch the grant process while we're looking at the latest costs.
Good, because I brought this up because, Governor Brown has pushed through a huge amount of money to deal with the immediate effects of the drought.
That was
And-
probably one of the 3.
Yeah, and there's a lot of money involved for recycled water grants, so we should try to get in line at SAM. So, you want to talk about the budget workshop?
I'm not sure how much more there is to say. I don't think we really got as far through the budget as we should have.
I think the whole time was spent, because when they threw some of those projects into quote maintenance and threw them into the budget, that's when they were saying, well, the budget's gonna go up 40% next year. People are saying, well, that doesn't make sense, you can't tell that to somebody. And then if we take the projects out of the quote budget, then the budget's flat. So the budget for all the administration, the stuff, the IT, that's flat. And then we spent the entire time talking about these projects and how we're gonna work them in and how to pay for them over X number of years and bonds so the future people pay too, and just trying to prioritize and things like that. So it wasn't the traditional budgets where we ask, why did the chemicals go up 5% or IT budgets 2%? We just spent the whole time talking about the projects, because that's going to be the big elephant in the room the whole time, is how do we make our community safer?
I was actually the one that raised the idea of financing some of the big ticket stuff on borrowed money. which normally I'm against. And, we should get kind of a hint from this board on what this board's feeling on it is. The reason I'm typically against it is because you pay a ton of money in interest, but right now interest rates are fairly low. We can probably go through SRF, the state revolving fund, where I think somebody mentioned the interest rate's like 1% right now. And the argument by a former co-site elected official that I have zero respect for is that the people in the future benefit from the project, and so they should pay part of the cost, which is what happens when you do it with debt financing. And for some of this stuff, these really big ticket items, like the part of the IPS up in Montera needs to be replaced, and that will probably be done with HDPE, high density, something or other, some sort of high density plastic.
Yeah.
And so I asked, what's the expected lifetime of the HDPE? And it's 70 years. So is it appropriate for people now to be spending to build infrastructure that will last for 70 years? It may in fact make sense to do the projects with really long lifetimes. The capital replacement stuff that has a long lifetime, it might make sense to do that with SRF loans.
Well,
So-
I think one of the considerations there too is if you have the money, it's the criticality of the need. How soon do we have to replace that section of the IPS? And if you've got to do it right away and you don't have money right away, then you've got to go borrow.
Well, we've had multiple failures on that segment
Right.
up there.
Well,
We
not
need to
yet.
fix it before.
I'm
there's
not
a-
debating the criticality, I'm just saying that's something you have to look at. Speaking to your borrowing money issue, that issue is mitigated somewhat by the fact that we charge people a capacity fee, which is based on the value of the assets in the district at the time they connect. So,
Except that's the one that Howard went
yeah, but we're not
down
doing it that
on.
way. Howard's been gone for 10 years. We're doing it the correct way, which is the value of the assets in the ground and the replacement costs.
It needs to be replaced.
All right, so.
So what do the other directors think of looking for the long lifetime things to do that with debt financing?
Even if they don't need to, even if they have the,
Well,
We don't have the money.
If there's $1 million project, like probably replacing the mile and something up in Montera, no, that wasn't a mile, it was 1,000 and something feet. But, that's at the minimum a few $100,000, and it might have been more, and we can't deplete all our capital reserves doing these really long lifetime projects. Because we just don't have enough money, and we're in much better financial shape than the other two agencies. I mean, Montera budgets, basically every year they look at how much money they need, and they fine tune their rates to that exact amount, so they never have anything to spare. And Half Moon Bay, while they don't fiddle with their rates every year, they are pretty lean on available money. And so if it's gonna be debt financed, that would be debt incurred by SAM, not the individual agencies.
Well, I think we've got to look at that as part of the whole budget
Sure.
process and see what the rate of outflow is gonna be, because, we do have reserves and we do have money coming in, and we've got, I get that ERAF refund check every year, and I don't know whether it's gonna be 150,000 or 250 or 300 or 0.
And what was it in this budget statement, $100? Or
No, it
1,000?
was big. The ERAF?
Huh? What?
Yeah, it was 250, isn't it here?
236?
But anyway, we need to look at that as part of their, once SAM sets in place their program, we've got to look at our program, and I'll keep, I've got the 5-year running CIP budget, and it shows where our reserves will be if we do X amount of projects. So, and that's part of our decision making.
Anybody, more news next month?
I don't know what I was looking at, but I was obviously looking in the wrong place. Wait a minute, year-to-date, oh, yeah, I somehow skewed reading across the lines and I was reading the wrong line. Never mind.
So how much was it?
$250,000. No, that was, wait a minute. Maybe I don't understand the column headers. So that's year-to-date. So when it says July 13th to February 14th, is that
Yeah, it's
year-to-date actual, not year-to-date budget?
It's year-to-date actual.
Yeah, that was $250,000. In case everybody's not clear on what the ERAF refund is, that's the county saying, oh, the state had to steal too much money from you, so we're giving back the excess.
And I'll take it.
Well, I'll weigh in on your question. I think it's for something that, the last 70 years, and I've heard 75 for HDPE, and I think that's a guess because they haven't
hasn't
been
been
using
around
it
long
that
enough.
long.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
so it could last 100 years or 125, they don't know. But I think it is
Clearly
appropriate.
it'll last longer than that crappy steel they put in 40
Yes,
years ago.
I think it's appropriate to pay it off over a long period because there are people yet to be born who are going to benefit from this.
Right,
So,
yeah, that's the argument, so.
yeah. So that's my attitude. Plus Sam doesn't have the money anyway, so it's kind of moot.
And, you know, certainly, I think while the SRF rate is really low, that would be the thing to do. If the SRF rate goes up to, 5 or 6 or 10%, then we certainly need to rethink that.
Yeah, it hasn't been up there since Clinton at least.
Really?
Yeah, hasn't been that high.
Well, it wasn't that long ago that the LAIF rate that we were getting on our deposits in the state investment fund, we were getting 5-point-something% on that. Now what are we getting, 0.1?
That's why districts that didn't do their maintenance and capital projects back then are ruining the day because the rates were so low that it would have been a good time to do it.
Yeah, but my point is we're getting 0.1 on LAIF and yet the SRF rate is 100 times that. I think it's 1%.
Yeah, the last thing I heard was 1%. Okay, done with Sam? Does anyone want to pull anything from the consent agenda?
Yeah, Chuck's gonna kill me. And watch him threaten to eliminate the consent agenda. I have a minor correction to something in the minutes. I guess we have to pull that. And,
It's a minor correction, you don't have to pull it.
okay, well, I think it's minor. And then I wanted to make a request for some account number changes in the budget. So that probably is gonna raise some significant discussion. So let's take the financial statements off of consent. And the thing with the minutes is, on item 1, it says, Director Warren moved to appoint Director Lohman to the LAFCO Special District Selection Committee as an alternate if the board president cannot attend. I'm a little uncomfortable with that exact wording. I'm not sure exactly what it should be, because I don't think that's word for word my motion. I don't think it was. If that was my motion, then we'd leave the minutes that way.
Well, I don't have my notes in front of me, so I don't know. But I write the minutes from my notes, so they shouldn't deviate from the note very
I
much.
think that was substantially your motion.
Okay, what I'm wondering is, can we basically approve the minutes saying, double check the recording and make sure?
What do you think it said? You said?
Probably something subtly different in terms of appointing Director Lohman to be our voting rep, because we're not appointing him to the Special District Selection Committee per se. The selection committee consists, by law, it consists of the board presidents. So we can't appoint him to the committee, we were appointing him to be the voting rep if.
Well, why don't we
if-
just change the language then to appoint Director Lohman as the voting representative for the district's voting representative for the LAFCO special district?
As the alternate voting rep
Right.
of the board president,
That's
yeah.
a good point.
Okay. Yeah, that works for me. The reason I'm being really picky about that is because the exact language is, or the exact procedures are spelled out very carefully in very short state law. Okay, so do we want to vote on the minutes and the warrants, or do you want to hear what I want to suggest on the budget for this actual?
Why don't you make a motion on the rest of the consent agenda first?
Okay, so I move we approve the minutes as amended for February 20th, and the, let me go back to the agenda and read it off of there. The March 2014 warrants for $129,977.76.
Second?
Oh, wait a minute, I forgot one item. And item 7, approval of assessment district distribution number 8-13/14 for $5,686.45.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded.
Moved and seconded for consent. No discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. So go to page 2 of the profit and loss budget versus actual. There's 3 accounts there that are in the 6,000 series, so they come under administration expenses. And I think that's just wrong. I'll tell you which ones in a second, but I think the ones I'm going to name really belong under operating expenditures, so that they should be 5,000 series accounts. And those are lateral repairs, which is 6220. CCTV costs, which is 6230. And pet waste station, which is 6320. So I think those 3 accounts should be changed, going back for the whole fiscal year. They should be changed to 5,000 series, hopefully just by replacing 6 with a 5 if there's no conflict.
Oh, weren't that easy.
Well, it'll simplify thinking about it if you can pull that one off and just change the 6 to a 5.
Yeah, we can.
But does everybody agree with me that those 3 lines really belong under operating expenditures and not administration expenditures?
Why are we fighting over the TV, the taping of the TV? Is that-
No, CCTV, that's not PCT.
No.
PCT comes under
I'll use my
somewhere else.
glasses.
I don't know where, but somewhere else.
Videotaping 6,200.
Yeah, there it is. All right, Matthew's got better vision. 6,200 videotaping. CCTV is when they send the camera down the sewer lines and
Cameras, okay.
produce these incomprehensible videos, which somehow Delia knows how to look at.
I mean, I'd say I have no objection. I mean, if it's,
I'd say I agree.
yep.
All right, we'll move.
Okay, so with that, I move we approve whatever that item was.
Number 6, approval of financial statements.
Item 6, February 2014 financial statements.
As amended?
Gee, I don't know, do we have to say as amended on that?
Yes.
Okay, that's
Well, you're not amending them really, I guess.
it. Right.
Rearrange.
We're going to do it in the future,
Oh,
right?
well, I mean,
We're not gonna change the financial statements for this meeting, we're just gonna in the future put all
Yeah.
expenses under 5,000 series.
Yeah.
okay,
But he wanted for the whole fiscal year.
right.
Well, the next one that comes out for
The next
next
one will
month,
come out,
it'll,
right.
all of the year-to-date things will be,
Yeah.
Oh, so you're not suggesting that
I'm not
This
saying,
format be
Right.
changed.
I don't say
Yeah.
reissue this one,
And
just
it
make the
may,
change.
and it may not be next meeting, it may be the meeting afterwards, because we're in the middle of transitioning QuickBooks files, so.
Okay, but as long as it's done before the end of the fiscal year.
Yeah, it'll be done before the end of this week.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Sure.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 No opposed? All right. Committee reports, reports on seminars, conferences, or committee meetings.
Oh, you want?
We have one.
Sure.
Yeah, I thought so.
Well, I'll point out that Rick agreed to do the kind of LAFCO reports that I was doing, and then I wouldn't go to the LAFCO meeting. So now he has to do the report.
I think from talking to the people there that the one I decided to start attending was possibly the shortest one on record. So it's fun to talk to everybody there. Just real quickly, I'll just run through the items. They had 2 water extensions in Redwood City where, I don't want to go in the whole legal process, but it's just 2 connections outside their normal area. And there's a process, and it's already been approved by the county, so this was just approving it by LAFCO.
So are those the ones where somebody who's not in the city limits of Redwood City wants water service that the
Yes.
county just doesn't have the physical facilities to provide, so they
Yes.
say, get it from the city of Redwood City?
So it's 2 more lots.
Yeah.
So this was on the consent agenda and it wasn't even debated, but that was just from the notes and things like that. They had the second item, which was the most exciting one, of course, which was the approval of our statement that was going on the ballot, the impartial analysis done by Martha Foriatos. So we'd had a little input on that ahead of time, so that was approved basically without discussion also. The last item was kind of a double item, which was revising the fee schedules. LAFCO is supported by money that comes in. The cities pay 1/3 of the bill, the special districts pay 1/3 of the bill, and what's the other one?
County?
The county pays 1/3 of the bill. So they were playing with the formulas a little bit, and the net result was they raised the fees by 10%. And that was approved, and she submitted a budget along with that to show where the extra money's going. She's lived for, I don't know how many decades as the sole employee. They've now hired a half-time administrator person. They used to have to pay the park service a certain amount for this half employee, but now they just let her hire somebody.
Martha's been the sole employee since 97 or 98.
Yeah. So it's been, so they just do so much there that it's amazing to even survive that. But
Are they now slightly behind schedule on the next round of MSRs?
the next one, just from what I heard in discussions before, is going to be a big one for, I'm not sure exactly which, because it's not agendized yet, but it's the Daly City, South San Francisco area. This is like a big one. I don't know if it'll be at this next May meeting, but that's lined up to go now. They're just
So,
getting ready.
were you on the dais or in the audience?
Joe was here for this meeting, so I was watching. He's already said he won't be there for the next meeting, so I'll be voting in May, so that'll be fun. But again, there just wasn't much exciting to happen this time. Martha apologized twice for having me go to the meeting and have it.
But, you know, for most of LAFCO's existence in San Mateo County, their typical agenda has been approving one parcel or another to be annexed to the West Bay Sanitary District.
So, there's going to be lots of exciting stuff happening because this whole North County analysis is going to be really interesting again. It'd be similar to what happened here for Half Moon Bay, but having millions more people involved.
Well, the North County one gets very complicated and difficult because there's these unincorporated islands that for whatever reason the surrounding cities don't want to include, or the people living there don't want to be part of the city. And it's really expensive to the county to provide services to these little tiny islands, some of which are, 2 blocks by 3 blocks.
I think where I said, I think she gave me some maps, which were really nice, and there were, I think there's like 18 of them. I'm just gonna throw that number out. It may not be a perfect number, but 18 little white chunks floated over the county. Like as Leonard said, either the people absolutely refuse to be annexed, or somebody doesn't want them, and it's just nice battles, and it's all historical, and everyone's different, and there's ones where I won't dissolve my district because I get property tax, and if we dissolve, I want the power to say this group here gets those property taxes. You know, they're trying to negotiate that. If you will let me designate the Benbow Fire Department or something gets the money, then we will agree to dissolve ourselves. I was like, can you do that? But those are just the discussion, and that's the kind of thing that's going on there. So.
What would you think of asking LAFCO to video their meetings? It would be done by Penn TV using the facilities that are in the room. There's a control room. I was almost going to say a little control room, but there's a control room that's not so little next to the Board of Supervisors meeting room where there's a ton of gear, and so they would just basically pay Penn TV whatever the charge is to have some guy sit there and record the meetings. And I think that'd be really good if you could get that done.
Save me writing ridiculous notes.
Yeah, I think that'd be great, because then I'd never have to go to the LAFCO meetings.
Okay.
In fact, tell LAFCO that I won't show up if they record the meeting.
That will do it.
Slam dunk. That's it.
Tell them I said that.
It's gonna make the minutes.
Make sure
All
you
right.
get that right.
Thank you, Rick. Information calendar, item 9, attorney's report.
No report.
Item 10, treasurer's report.
No report.
Item 11, GM's report.
No report.
Item 12, administrator's report.
No, nothing for this.
I have something I want to raise under administrator's report. I like the new trash cans. They're really cool, and they blend in, they don't stand out. But you need to work with Seacoast on the schedule, because I think it was late Saturday, there's actually two at Surfers Beach, one of them close to the RV lot and one of them close to the slip and slide. And the one close to the slip and slide, people were hammering the stuff in. So I don't know if we need to have two there or
They're willing to pick it up more than once a week. I think it's.
once a week. I thought they were doing it 3 times a week.
I think they're only going once.
Oh, that one needs to be emptied on, it needs to be emptied on Friday so that it's empty for the weekend, and it needs to be emptied on Monday, and that's the minimum schedules.
Yeah, the good weather tends to bring more.
Okay,
weather.
but can you try and arrange to get them to do it on
Yeah.
Friday and Monday?
Yeah.
And then you might want to check later in the week a few times and see if that's sufficient.
I don't know if you happen to notice or not, but someone already graffitied our new trash can at the top of it. So I hope you get some matching paint and be able to fix that.
Look for matching paint in graffiti resistant. There's graffiti resistant paint that you can basically get the graffiti off with soap and water.
Oh, I know that. I'll check it out.
Yeah.
There's a spray too.
It's really expensive paint, but it's probably worth it, and you don't need much. But yeah, thanks for getting those new cans. I think they're great. And they're heavy enough that they're not going to blow over.
They're 200 to get,
Holy moly.
Empty.
they make them, some are
Right.
800 pounds. But,
And,
it's difficult.
and they've got some sort of spring-loaded door, which I guess if the raccoons get in, they can't get out.
Plus it keeps, trash inside and.
Right. And so this is an example of a good community service the district provides without having it be a requirement of the law.
Actually, I received thank you today for the muffin dispensers that we have on, I need it that quite often.
I hope you check the one at Surfers Beach really often, because it seems like every time I look at it, it appears to be empty from a distance.
Quite a few bags in there, last weekend.
Because I don't go up close to it because I don't have a dog, but
Yeah, that's one that's hardest to get out, because I they usually sustain for about a week.
Hmm.
You never know. Sometimes people have their own diapers, used for all kinds of things.
Well, probably better that than leaving them under the bushes down at the riparian area on our property.
All right, thank you. Engineers report.
Nothing further than what John.
I have a question. KJ is going to have Sandus perform the topographic survey for the CIP project. Is that with Sandus Engineering of Sunnyvale? No?
I thought they were a pure surveying firm.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I think it is.
Pure surveying
Yeah.
firm. Okay, yeah, that makes more sense. I don't know why they would hire another engineering
No.
firm to do that.
So
But-
why do we need a survey for this?
I've gone into this at length, trust me, with multiple engineers.
Okay, what's the really short version?
They're engineers. That's the best answer I can give you. All right, they're civil engineers.
No, I mean, we're replacing sewers. Do we need GPS coordinates down to a foot for
Well, you
where
know,
they are?
what delayed the CIP last time was me hating to spend money to survey sewers that are in place and instead of telling a guy, here's a manhole on the sewer main between the two holes, you know?
Concept.
So, yeah, so I'm actually working on that as kind of a background project to try and figure out plans and specs that we don't have to do this level of surveying and level of design work and all that kind of stuff. I hate to spend that much money on replacing existing pipes.
Yeah. By the way, what are we replacing with? Are we doing metal or HDPE?
Not metal, and I don't think that's HDPE, it might be PVC, I'd have to have John.
Well, I guess if they're not pressure, PVC probably works.
Yeah, I don't know if that, you said, you know, why they have to survey it within a foot. You mean a tenth of a foot. That's what they want to survey it to. And Chuck, aren't some of these pipes have been in the ground since 1920?
Yeah,
Now they go like this. So if you just replace it in place, you can end up replicating that. So they need some basis for getting the right fault.
and they've got to get utility conflicts and things like that, so there's a lot of that work, so that's why you can't bend around it. I'm still trying to find a way.
Yeah. Okay, any
Just watch out for gas lines that are run through the sewer
Exactly.
lines.
Any other comments or anything? Good. We are adjourned.